Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, the year of our Lord 2023. Part of the Inflation Reduction Act. I always have to laugh when I say that because it doesn't reduce the inflation. But in the Inflation Reduction Act, part of it, they carved out $15 million. I know as the budget went, not very much, $15 million though, to find out just to do a study to find out if we should provide free tax preparation for everyone. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Won't you join us? Now, people might think, Attorney Leahy, why could you be against free stuff? They're going to do it for you for free. And I had to stop and think, do you really want the IRS preparing your tax return for you? They do that now. It's called a substitute for return. And they really hit you hard when they do it for you. Now, it's out there. Elizabeth Warren insisted on this. And I played this on the show during the debate on this, where she took the IRS chairman to the side, to task, I should say, not because it was during a committee hearing, and said, "Are you going to approve of this? I won't agree unless you agree to put some money aside to investigate whether the IRS should prepare everyone's tax returns. I want you to put," and they said, "Yes, I will. We will commit to that." And so, of course, they got $80 billion, and whatever small percentage 15 million is of 80 billion, it's a pittance. And so they did that, but they haven't done it. But some conservative organizations today came out and voiced concern about it. And so let's read that story. Here it is. The Conservative Coalition takes aim at Biden's IRS-run tax preparation service. A coalition of conservative groups led by Americans for Tax Reform are calling on lawmakers to block the creation of a government-run tax preparation service or a direct file tax return system, a largely overlooked reform included last year in President Biden's landmark Inflation Reduction Act. The program is the brainchild of Senator Elizabeth Warren, who in 2021 reintroduced it to simplify the tax filing process for millions of Americans in the hopes of saving average American hours and hundreds of hours of dollars usually spent on filing taxes. But conservative critics, led by Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist, say the government shouldn't be helping Americans figure out how much they owe in taxes because the Internal Revenue Service has a vested interest in collecting as much tax revenue as possible. Such a system would be an unprecedented expansion of the size and power of the IRS and should be opposed by Congress. Americans for Tax Reform and allied conservative groups wrote in a March 22nd letter to members of Congress. And today's March 23rd. Today's March 22nd. So that's today. Government-run tax preparation would create a significant conflict of interest in which the IRS would be responsible for calculating a filer's tax liability and for managing contested tax returns, the groups wrote. This would create an incentive for the IRS to overcharge taxpayers or withhold information from filers to maximize revenue. The letter has more than 30 signatories, including Norquist, Teller, Kirpin, Pozek, and others. The groups say their concern is only bolstered by the IRS receiving $80 billion in increased funding from the Inflation Reduction Act to ramp up audits of American taxpayers with a clear mandate to maximize the amount of tax revenue collected from filers. This only makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you don't want the same people that are tasked with coming after you to figure out how much you owe. It's clear conflict of interest. The brewing battle pits Norquist, who rose to prominence for promoting the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, with the majority of Republican senators and House members have endorsed, against Warren, who has led the push among Democrats to raise taxes on the wealthy. except for her. People who want to block free file are doing so to try to make paying taxes as cumbersome and painful as possible for everyday taxpayers. Not so. That's just playing politics at its ugliest level, Warren said in response to the letter, because she doesn't play politics. Nations around the world do versions of free file in order to make it easy for people to support their government, like the Chinese Communist Party. You might make it easy to support your government. Why won't you just support your government and give them all your money? There's no reason for the United States should not be doing that as well. Warren included her Tax Filing Simplification Act in response to what she saw as the failures of the earlier Free File program. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, which the IRS outsourced to the tax preparation industry, since that's what they do. And we saw how well the government makes websites when Obama made his health care plan and spent $1 trillion on that, or $1 billion, whatever the number was a lot of money, which the IRS outsourced to the, and she argued at the time, underserved the public. We'll see what the numbers are on that. She pointed out last year that Intuit, a longtime member of the Free File Alliance, had been sued for scamming taxpayers into paying for filing service that should have been free, according to the statement from her office released in July. Actually, what they did was they charged for state tax returns, and they did federal tax returns for free. The average American spends 13 hours and $240 every year to file their taxes. Whose fault is that? That's too much time and too much money. This is the result of corporations like Intuit sabotaging the free file program to rake in large profits. I don't think it's their fault that it takes 13 hours and $240 for the average taxpayer. And they've actually reduced that price. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, their product wouldn't be very valuable and they wouldn't make any money. Isn't that right? But Norquist and other critics of the reform argue that private tax preparation companies are better suited to help Americans filed their tax returns because they have a financial incentive to minimize the amount of taxes their clients owe and are therefore more likely to provide taxpayers with impartial and accurate advice. Makes sense, doesn't it? They say the IRS is already showing its hand by tapping the progressive-leaning New America Foundation to conduct a study of the impact of direct filing system. You can always see who they hire to do these reports, right? The IRS's selection of the New America Foundation represents an obvious effort by the Biden administration to select a politically allied group to conduct a study where the results are pre-baked and favorable to the cause of the government-run tax preparation. They argued that the IRS lacks the information it needs to prepare tax returns and would put tax credits often claimed by lower-income tax filers at risk, citing a Progressive Policy Institute report that warned a return-free system would fail to properly identify Americans who qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit. That's where they should go, right? Because that's we don't want that. We don't want people not to get free money. The IRS just doesn't have the information required to be able to file an earned income tax credit for people. A significant percentage of people, I think it drops by 10% or 15%, wouldn't be claiming the earned income tax credit as currently due. That's when the tax gap comes in, said Mike, the director of tax policy at Americans for Tax Reform. Americans for Tax Reform and its allies argued that another study from PricewaterhouseCoopers found that a government-run tax preparation service would increase the compliance burdens on individual tax filers. They cited PricewaterhouseCoopers' finding that the pool of taxpayers eligible to use a return-free system may be limited without a substantial expansion of information reporting. And that's exactly what they want. Information reporting. Remember, these are 1099s and all of these, the 1099K, 1099 NEC, 1099 miscellaneous, 1099R, 1099S. There's at least 20 1099 forms. And they want to go after our bank accounts. So we have to report to them how much money goes in our bank account and how much money goes out. And then they can tell us how much we owe, right? So that's a very good column, I think, from the Hill. I wanted to just get, this is from August, I think. Nope, September 2nd. 7th, I should say, 2022. And I wanted to put this out there because, and we reported it at the time. I don't know if this is the article we read, but this is, at the time we did report this. IRS gets $15 million to find out if it can create online tax return system so Americans can file for free. Now, remember they had a deadline on how to come up with a report on how they're going to spend the $80 billion, and they missed that deadline. And so I got this newest article here. I went back on this article because I wanted to find out. I know that they gave them $15 million, and they said, well, how? So I wanted to find out how much time they had. Did they already blow that? Because I couldn't find any recent articles about it. And it turns out that they gave them 9 months from the date that the act was passed, and that was August. So I think that brings us into May. So we're not there yet. What a surprise that it would be after tax season. Anyway, just a thought. So let's go back. The Inflation Reduction Act provided $15 million for the IRS to study how it could create a program that allows Americans to file their tax returns for free. The program would cut out the middleman. The report must include third-party input and is due before Congress 9 months after the Inflation Reduction Act became law. The Inflation Reduction Act became law on August 16th. The $15 million is to study the cost of developing and running a free direct file tax return system, including costs to build and administer each release with the focus on multilingual and mobile-friendly features. The third party will look at the overall feasibility, approach, schedule, cost, organizational design, and IRS capacity to deliver a direct file tax return system. The program, in theory, would replace the current free filing program. The free file program isn't available to all taxpayers and isn't widely used by eligible filers. Why is that? Filers who earn $73,000 or less can receive free guided tax preparation. The tax filing is done on an IRS partner site, but only some state preparation and filing are free. Well, I can tell you right now that if the federal government, does a free file, they're not going to prepare state tax returns for free. They won't have the information, and they don't coordinate well with the states, so that won't happen. So, I want one more story here. This is the free file. Let's go back because this is the free file. The free file launch aims to save taxpayer hard-earned money. And this is, if you go to free file, IRS free file, you can, if you make less than $73,000, you can use this tax preparation software for free. Now you're still doing your own tax return. You're just filling in the blanks. But many people, there's only a couple blanks to fill out. So it's not a big deal. But I wanted to, this one, this is the story now. And so they're spending $15 million to find out how we should get a system in the government to file for free for people. We already have one, right? And hardly anyone knows about this IRS program that lets you file your taxes for free. The IRS's partnership with top tax prep software companies let you calculate and file your federal return at no charge. The story is part of the Taxes 2023, a partnership between the IRS and 7 of the biggest online tax prep companies. Free File allows taxpayers under certain income threshold to file simple federal returns for free. More than 100 million people, get this now, more than 100 million people qualify for Free File, according to the IRS, close to 70% of all taxpayers. But since the program launched in 2003, less than 2% of the eligible Americans have taken advantage of it. Why is that? Here's how to tell if you qualify for Free File. I'm not going to get into that, but I just wanted to put that out there. Less than 2% of the people have. So instead of spending $15 million to find out a plan to provide free tax preparation service for something that they already do, wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it make more sense if they spent that $15 million to tell people about it, to get people to use it? Doesn't that make sense? Our government just doesn't make sense. But it's not our government. It's all governments. Is there a government out there that makes sense? The answer is no. The problem and the scary part is our government makes more sense than every other government. That doesn't mean they make sense. Right? But I wouldn't feel comfortable with the IRS preparing my tax return. I'm just saying. What free people not only create an agency like the IRS or the TSA or whatever, several others, what free people would create the IRS and then give them $80 billion more? It doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't get it. Anyway, there's lots I don't get. I decided, or I reached a conclusion some time ago that my neighbors and fellow Illinoisans, if that's what we're called, want higher taxes, right? We want to be dictated to what we should do and what we shouldn't do, because we keep electing the same people over and over, and they're doing the same thing they do. And I hear people complain about it, but when it comes time to vote, they all vote for it. So I must be on the fringe of people who don't want to see their taxes go up. Everybody else seems to want their taxes to go up, and so they go up. It's not a surprise. So anyway, first I want to tell you to like and subscribe, ask you to like and subscribe. We need your help to get this information out. So please like and subscribe. And remember, if you are fighting the IRS, if you have an IRS problem, if you have unfiled tax returns, and you don't know what to do, first thing you should do, get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com. That's freeirsbook.com. Get your free copy of my book. I will pay for the publishing if you pay for the shipping and handling. So go to freeirsbook.com. Get your free copy. Thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it. We'll be back here tomorrow with more IRS news. You won't want to miss it. So thanks so much for joining us. God bless you. And we are now... let me make sure I have the right one. We are now out.